Okay, think about the coffee you're drinking right now, or the phone that's probably in your hand. Every single thing we buy is the end result of this massive, complex, global journey. It's a system that works so well, most of the time, we don't even think about it. But it's also way more fragile than you might realize. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden risks inside that global supply chain, and talk about what it really takes to keep our world moving.
To really get the risk, you first have to appreciate just what a miracle the system is. The modern supply chain is this incredible dance of goods, information, and money, all flowing across oceans and continents 24/7. It's the reason we have so much choice and at amazing prices, all because it's built for one thing: maximum efficiency.
But here's the other side of that coin. What happens when it breaks? A single event, a pandemic, a hurricane, a single ship getting stuck in a canal can trigger this massive ripple effect that messes up the entire system. And as we've all seen firsthand, just one broken link can mean empty shelves and huge delays for everybody.
And that really gets us to the big trade-off of globalization. On one hand, businesses get these massive advantages. They can access cheaper materials, they can tap into enormous new markets, but the price for all that efficiency? A lot more uncertainty. Every new partner, every new country in the chain is another place where things can go wrong, making the whole thing incredibly vulnerable to global shocks. It's a constant, high-stakes balancing act. So, if you're a business trying to navigate all this, where do you even begin? Well, the first step is you have to actually define the threat. Supply chain risk isn't just some vague, fuzzy feeling of worry. It's a real concept, something you can actually measure and, hopefully, manage. And this right here is a really critical shift in thinking. For a long time, a company might have only worried about risks happening inside its own factory walls. But as this quote points out, that view is just way too narrow now. In a global supply chain, risk is a network problem. A fire at your supplier's supplier, halfway across the world, guess what? That is now your problem too. We can actually break risk down into a pretty simple formula. Basically, risk equals the probability of a loss happening times the impact of that loss. To put it even simpler, you're just asking two questions. One, what's the chance something bad is going to happen? And two, if it does happen, how bad is it going to be? Answering that helps companies figure out what they really need to worry about the most. And you can sort of put these risks into four main buckets. First, you've got supply risk. That's when your suppliers can't deliver. Then there's operational risk, which is when your own internal stuff breaks down. Third is demand risk. That's when customers suddenly want way more or way less of your product than you expected. And finally, security risk. We're talking cyber attacks, theft, that kind of thing. Okay, so you're facing all these potential threats. How do businesses actually fight back? Well, it's not about just guessing or hoping for the best. The research lays out a really clear 5-step playbook for trying to manage all this chaos. And the process is super logical. It just builds on itself. Step 1, you identify all the possible things that could go wrong. Step 2, you assess them. Remember that formula? How likely is it, and how bad would it be? Step 3, you pick the right strategies to deal with the biggest risks. Step 4, you actually put those plans into action. And Step 5, you have a backup plan, a mitigation plan for when things still, inevitably, go wrong. So let's zoom in a little bit on that third step, selecting the right strategies. This is where the rubber really meets the road and where managers have to make some tough but absolutely critical choices about how to prepare for an uncertain future.
And here is the most important thing to remember. You can never, ever get rid of risk completely. It's impossible. So the goal isn't to create some perfect risk-free system. The goal is to make smart, calculated trade-offs. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here. The best strategy completely depends on the product, the market, and just how much risk you're willing to live with.
This slide shows that trade-off perfectly by comparing two opposite strategies. On one side, you have postponement. This is a wait-and-see approach. So think of a company that prints custom t-shirts. They'll stock a ton of plain white shirts, but they won't actually print a design until an order comes in. That gives them maximum flexibility. On the other side, you have speculation. Think of a company making the hot new toy for the holidays. They're going to bet on the future, mass-producing millions of them based on forecasts, hoping they guessed right because speed is everything. It's a classic battle, speed versus flexibility. And of course, there are plenty of other tools in the toolbox. There's hedging, which is basically not putting all your eggs in one basket, like using multiple suppliers instead of just one. There's control, which could mean bringing key manufacturing processes in-house. And there's sharing risk, which is where things like outsourcing come in. You let a partner take on some of that risk for you.
So when you put all of these tools and frameworks together, you realize they're all building toward one really big idea. This isn't just about reacting to the crisis of the week. It's about shifting to be more proactive and building a system that's fundamentally stronger and more adaptable for whatever comes next.
The real name of the game is resilience. And a resilient supply chain isn't one that never has problems. That's a fantasy. It's a supply chain that can take a massive punch, absorb that shock, and adapt on the fly without completely falling apart. So how do you actually build that? Well, the research points to 3 key ingredients. First, you need real flexibility in your operations so you can pivot fast. Second, you need strong organizational learning, which is a fancy way of saying you have to actually learn from your mistakes and get better. And third, you need advanced information systems so you can see problems coming in real time, not after it's too late.
And that really brings us to the final big question. After everything we've all been through with disruptions, are companies truly building these flexible, resilient systems for the long haul? Or is the focus more on short-term patches, just kind of waiting around for the next crisis to hit? It's definitely something to think about the next time you're tracking a package on its long journey across the world.